Well, it must be nice. No, wrong video. Dan here, DD Speed Shop. So anyways, let's talk Power Tour. So they announced Power Tour dates and stops and stuff like that, or they gave it to the VIPs. We didn't get it. We heard about it on the internet with all the crazy people. Anyway, people have been asking us nonstop if we're going on Power Tour. So we're going, one way or another. We're probably going to take this hot rod, 56 wagon we're working on. I have dreams of taking the Nomad maybe, or a little both, or we'll flat tow one. Maybe we'll just go and bring them both, you know, tied to each other, and we're, it's like security numbers. We'll have at least one car running. Anyway, people on there's a Facebook group, and they are psychopaths on that group. There's non-stop fighting. If you're watching us on Facebook, I love you guys, by the way, but there's arguing left and right. There's amateurs asking what the heck to do and all that stuff. And we've gone 1 year. So we're basically experts. Now, we'll probably do a few videos closer up to it, but people are asking right now, people are panicking and all that sort of stuff. So people are losing their mind about booking hotels and all this sort of stuff. Well, I tell you what. Last year, we waited till the last possible minute to book. The Power Tour still got in. There's no issues there. Danny went ahead and booked, I think, all the hotels, of which most of them canceled our reservation. We did
the day of.
The day of. We would like Expedia it or whatever it was, and we would show up, and the office or the front desk people were very friendly, and they said, "Oh yeah, no, we clearly see that it was done, but we have gave your room to somebody else. So too bad, so sad." Anyway, we always found a place to sleep. It wasn't that bad, so I wouldn't overthink it too much. And honestly, a couple of the nights that we couldn't get good rooms, we found some miscellaneous place, and it was way cheaper and way better. Because they gouge you on Power Tour Day, but way of the world. I think the hotels is probably the biggest thing people are worried about. Now, as for the cars, it's going to be hot. I'm going to say that a few times. So prepare yourself for that. But here's the deal with Power Tour. So last year there was a lot of highway, but I believe this year is a lot more backroad stuff. So if people are freaking out, well, can my car make it? And Plan B and all these things. At the end of the day, would you take your car for like a 2-hour drive to the cabin for the weekend and then drive it back? Because if the answer is yes, you're just doing that 2-3 hour drive every single day for 5 days. It's really not that crazy. So if your car can't handle that, you got lots of time to start working on it. But it don't matter what motor it is, what brakes you have, any of those things. If it can make it a couple of 100 miles a day, you're fine. Now, the only asterisk I'll put beside that is stop and go traffic. So it's going to be hot. It's in June or whatever the heck in the south. So she's real hot, especially coming from Canada. Oh my God, was it hot. But stop and go traffic is what's going to kill you. On the way in and out of events, it was definitely slow moving. But what are you going to do? I don't know how many thousand cars and all that there are, but there's a lot. So be prepared for that. Now, come later, go earlier, whatever the heck you want to do there, I guess. But that is probably the number one place we saw carnage, was people trying to get into the events, and it was just slow moving, and cars are overheated and dropping like flies on the side of the road. So that's my quick advice. Now, from that, people are nonstop asking me what we're doing and stuff like that. So last year, we took a 57 Chevy, 2-door sedan. It had a 6-liter LS in it, bone stock, you know, who knows what mileage is on it, with a turbo 400 and the stock rear end. So, before we left, I did the exact amount of mileage it was going to be on the Power Tour. I did that back and forth to a buddy's place. I think it was a weekend or two beforehand. Got the miles on the car. I felt like it made it. No big deal. I had to put a bunch of street miles on it anyways. But highway miles. Danny's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, you're acting like it was no big deal. It was the week before Power Tour. You did it, and that was great. And then you came home, and what did you do for
I'm getting to it. So I did the cruise. The car made it. No problem back and forth. I was happy with it, and we were all golden there. That being said, we had a little bit of heat here, but nothing too crazy, and the car started running a little warm. When I would come off the highway and you'd pull in to, you know, get gas or screw around or whatever, the temperature would creep up, and it would get to a point where the fan would be on, the radiator's going, and it couldn't pull it down. Now I had a proper aluminum radiator, I had a high flow fan, all those sort of things, but sitting there idling, the temperature would slowly but surely creep up. So I started panicking, going, oh my God, we're gonna add another 10 or 15 or 20 degrees to this in the south, coming off the highway, trying to get gas or whatever it is, and this thing is going to nuclear meltdown. So the week before, I panicked and bought a giant radiator and tried to cobble it all together. Now that being said, it worked very well, and the car ceased to overheat and worked fantastically. So again, with the cooling system, now you've thrown me off where I was going to go with whatever else I was talking about. Oh, so we did that. The cooling system was really the only thing I was panicked about, was the cooling system. And then I had stock rear springs in the thing, leaf springs. They're pretty sacked out. The car sat cool empty, but once we put all our luggage, tools, spare gear in there, it was nose high and looked ridiculous. So I changed the springs so it would do it would ride a little sturdier on the highway. I then put the springs in wrong, so it was riding on the shackles. We had no suspension, but you know what? We made it no problem. That being said, so what we were packing to go, I overpacked because I got this from my old man. He over-prepares and overthinks things. I try not to, but Murray, you got me. So I brought half my garage, as it turned out, for tools, and I didn't use any of it. But it was the classic, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So we'll probably do the same thing this year, bring way too many tools. With that, the only real thing that I was super panicked about, that I did bring a second set of Tri-5s, which is like a, 5, 6, 7 Chevy, but from 55 to 62 or 3 or 4 even, Chevy had a goofy rear end, and I was worried I was going to KO the rear end, in which case it would be probably hard to find parts to get it fixed up. So I brought a spare center section and axles, because I was worried about that. So if you are bringing something that's a little weird and you do have a couple of spare parts for stuff like that, I would recommend maybe bring one of those. I also brought like an alternator and I think a starter or something like that, just to toss in the back. But typically, if you have stuff that's available, you can make it to the next O'Reilly's or Napa or whatever the heck's down in the States there and carry on. Now this hot rod's slightly different. Oh, also, we had a Turbo 400 and I think a 350 rear gear. She was buzzing on the highway. So this year, we're essentially building the same car. So we got a 56 Chevy wagon, so we have a little bit more room. It does have another 6-liter LS, and this is what maybe adjust your hood hinges too. This is what I'm talking about for radiator. This is the biggest radiator I could basically put in there. I'll probably still block the sides here before we go, so it'll force as much air through there as possible. But I ran this exact setup in the 57, but it was basically bungee corded in because we again had run out of time. And I ran dual electric fans on it, and it ran fine. We had no issues. This year, running overdrive and a different rear end we have in this thing, so it's all kind of more modern stuff that is available. But that's kind of irrelevant. Now, again, we could have slowed down or done whatever, but last year we had the old, it's an LS motor, right? They're meant to rev. So I had the thing sitting at $3,000, 3,200 RPM for hours at a time, chooching through fuel, but we made it no problem. So this year it should be nice with overdrive. The heat, I'm going to say it again, is your biggest thing. So you got to make sure the car can handle it. Make sure your radiator's, good. Maybe bring a couple extra jugs of water. We had water in the car and all that. We have dual fans. I did bring a spare fan just in case a fan calved or whatever. You can get to the next stop on the side of the road. But what we did for ourselves, stay cool inside. So inside, I have nothing in this yet. But last year, before we left, and I got a few additions to do this year, but last year, I made a cooler in back, and I put some little sump pumps in it, and I ran water through a couple of t-shirts, which we actually ended up using as seat covers. So you had a little, cool on your back, which was nice, a little ice water going through, a couple of electric 12-volt fans. Made a world difference just to keep some air flowing. Again, when you're stuck in traffic. On the highway, it wasn't bad, but in the stuck in traffic, those were your issues. So that's kind of the big thing. Now, when you're on the side of the road or wherever it is, people are going to help you out. Like, it's not going to be an issue. You get, blow something up, 50 people stop by to help you. They got parts, they'll do whatever they got to do. We saw all sorts of little garages in small towns. they were open, helping hot rodders out, doing whatever they could, floor jacks out in the parking lot. So no real worries there. But I would recommend putting a few miles on your car. You know what I mean? Like if you take it on Sundays and that's it, take it out to the beach or do something like that. Make sure put a few miles on it. The basics, have good tires, have good brakes, have all that stuff taken care of. Make sure your hoses aren't going to rub together. City driving is a lot different than highway driving. I know I overthought it a lot, so I've been in a lot of people's position. If you're thinking about going and you're like, oh, it's a panic and this and that, just do it. We came all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, so I think we drove 22 or 3 hours or something like that of drive time. So it's 2 full days to get down to the tour. We towed the car. We flat towed it, which we took a bunch of attitude from. And then we drove the car around, and we had to drive all the way back. We ditched the truck in Tennessee. So we did a bunch of driving in that old car. It was great. This year, I just want to take the whole thing, the car right down. We're just going to leave, and it's a 26 hours or 25 hours of driving. That's highway, at 70 mile an hour. Let alone gas and P-stops and all that. So it'll be a lot of driving each way on top of the tour. So it's going to be what it's going to be, but should be a fun time, and I'm really excited about it. So my advice is if you want to go, just go. Figure it out. Obviously be prepared a little bit. Have a few things in the car, and you'll be fine. Don't overthink it. It'll be a good time. And hey, if it breaks down, it breaks down. The last thing people always freak out about, and I have to give my opinion on it, is people like to complain about model year and what year is a cutoff and should late model cars be allowed and all that sort of stuff. Take whatever the hell you want and don't let people tell you otherwise. Because I tell you what, you want to be there in your 2020 Hellcat? It's a hell of a lot nicer than this thing, and it'll always be worth more money and always be more of a muscle car than this ever will. So what's your version of a hot rod? When I think hot rod, I think like a 32 Ford. I'm not taking a 32 Ford. Some people do. There are absolutely crazy people on the road there. So take whatever you enjoy. Some people had some stuff stolen for sure. That was cars stolen, tools stolen, all that. So be aware of that. Every time we stopped, there was a bit of a thing. We had to get one of those bell carts or whatever. We loaded all the tools and all the stuff we were scared about from the car, took it in. And actually, I learned Derek, vice grip there, he said, dismantle the thing. Start taking stuff apart so it won't start. So, pick your little thing you want to undo or a electrical connection or put a kill switch or do whatever. Because unfortunately, there's some dishonest people, and it's very obvious as to where everyone is going to be for 5 days. So if you want to steal a classic car, criminals, as dumb as they are, they go where, the low-hanging fruit is. So be aware of that stuff. Enjoy the trip. Enjoy. We'll have a lot more Power Tour videos coming up. Very simple. But TikTok, it's coming. It's January, end of January right now, and it's in June. So we got February, March, April, May. So you got 5 months. You think that's a long time, but I tell you, the last week before we went, I was nonstop working, trying to get the car together, and I thought we had a car that was turnkey ready to go. So put the miles on, prepare for it, and enjoy yourself. And I hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel so you can watch all my tomfoolery while we work on these things to get there. And leave a comment if there's something I've missed, because I'll read them 100% diligently, and then in future videos we'll discuss it. See you next time.